गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। टुडे वी गोना टॉक ऑफ द ओनली पिलर ऑफ पाकिस्तान। Any guesses? Hardly any. It's the army. We'll get to that a little later. Many of you would feel, why am I talking so much about Pakistan? There's a reason. There are a lot of things happening in the world. Bangladesh is on fire with their own, kitchen in flames. The problems in the South China Sea, the problems in Gaza, the Russia-Ukraine war. China is, on top of us. US-India relations. Why am I talking so much about Pakistan? The reason I'm talking about Pakistan in such great detail, and I'm going, layer by layer, in depth, is because of the fact that what has happened in Pakistan is very fundamental and important to understand. Many of us don't seem to be understanding this. The Pakistan, which we spoke of even last month or 2 months back, is quite different uh, today. The 27th Amendment has changed the character of Pakistan. And the events which have taken place in the past 6 months, from the time the 26th Amendment to now, have put Pakistan in a different, and the Opsandur, and this year, there is a marked change. You're going to deal with a different Pakistan. One. Second, there's a good chance that Pakistan might auto implode with the weight of this only pillar. So if there's only one pillar in the state, it can't survive. That's the reason. You must understand this. A state needs many pillars. We all know the three pillars, the main pillars of the state are the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. And we always talk of the fourth pillar, the media. Today in Pakistan, all those are not there. It's only one pillar, that's the army. Will the army be able to sustain this pillar? I don't know. If it does, there's an issue. Because there's an issue for us. This pillar is a dangerous pillar headed by a man who's pretty dangerous, the way I look at it. And that is why I am focusing so much on Pakistan. And today, my focus on Pakistan is not my view. It is going to be the Pakistani view. How are Pakistanis feeling about all this? It is their analysis. Of course, I'll add my comments on those analysis, but I'm going to, for many of you who feel, look, this could be quite boring because I'm going to quote verbatim from what Pakistanis have written and analyzed. Right? Before that, I'd like to thank, Ramakrishnan has said, Ramki Ramakrishnan. He said, "Good morning, sir. Discussion with General Shokin was fantastic. I feel they should be told to amend their book." Yeah, I mean, you can tell them what, but they'll do what they have to do. And they'll do what, is suitable to them. Yeah, that's the fundamental thing. But thanks a lot. I specifically brought General Shokin Chauhan over because he knows a lot about Pakistan and he thinks and writes and references. If you go through his Substack articles, heavily referenced, right? And that's why I brought him along. And I'm continuing in that vein of analysis of Pakistan. Right. Before I go further, I'd like to tell you these days, StreamYard has given us a facility where we can stream. This podcast is coming to you in two formats. One is the normal landscape format. The other is the straight vertical format. Why am I telling you this? Because many people have asked what happened to the normal format. Well, this is two streams. So if you are looking in a mobile, it's, I would recommend go to the vertical format and have a look at it. If you are a viewer who's seeing it in a normal laptop or anything, then go for the landscape format. If you're looking at it in a mobile in a horizontal mode, also go for the landscape format. You want to see the slides in detail and everything, go to the landscape format. You want everything, you're a mobile artist, go to the vertical format. So this stream is in two formats. It's new, it's a new thing which is offered by StreamYard. So I'm going in for it. I've gone in for it. In fact. Okay, let's get going. I read this article by Arifa Noor, The State and Its Pillars. And that's where I got the idea of this particular episode. And she writes this one sentence says everything. There is little hope that any of these three pillars of the state are intact. Now, this comes in an op-ed in Dawn 2 days back or yesterday. Yeah, yesterday morning. Right? And if this comes out in the main op-ed of a leading, newspaper of Pakistan, there is scope to reflect. She's very clearly said that all three pillars are gone. And what's interesting, I have shared this many times before, but I want to tell this again. What's interesting is that in Pakistan, the press is, especially the mainstream media, is pretty open about their feelings. And it's a wonder why these chaps have not clamped down on it. The ISI and the ISPR have not clamped down on this mainstream media. It might happen any day now. I'll go beyond this. It's not only a matter of the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature, which are finished in Pakistan. Even the mainstream media and every media is kept. Every media generally has to, especially the electronic and the social media, officially cannot speak against Pakistan. Even the ticker tapes they say in Pakistan media, TV, is the same. They come in the same sequence. Right? But my analysis or my whole thing today is based on two articles. Very serious analysis by in Dawn. One says military overall, this is the article, military overall, jointness in name, centralization in practice. Centralization is a diplomatic word to say this is a military takeover. Right? In fact, it's an army takeover. The only pillar is the army. Right? Okay. The second, this analysis, it says one chief to rule all military services. These two, I have taken excerpts from this and I'm going to present them to you. We'll read. It will be a reading exercise. It will be some kind of an article reader today. Right. I'm not going to differentiate which said what, but we'll read it in continuity. It says the proponents of the restructuring introduced through amendment in Article 243 of the Constitution and the subsequent changes in the legislations governing Army, Air Force, and Navy, and they called it modernization. While its critics warn about centralization. So the whole story of this amendment is showing that the Pakistan armed forces are modernizing. Right? And this is a very important thing. He says rather than dispersing authority across a joint command or empowering a neutral coordinating chief, much like what the United States did through the Goldwater-Nichols Act or India with its Chief of Defense Staff, the restructuring has concentrated the logic of jointness in the office of the Chief of Army Staff. That's the interesting thing. The idea is to modernize, joint, where you need decentralization. The opposite has happened. And then there's one retired veteran, a general of Pakistan. He says jointness is not being created between the services. It is being created above them. Very, very telling statement. Okay? So, and he says The new system virtually makes almost every top armed forces appointment contingent on the recommendation of the CDF come COS, that is, Chief of Defense Staff come CDOS. Only when he decides someone has to become a senior officer, that's allowed. It has been legislated that the newly created position of CNSC, Commander of National Strategic Command, an office overseeing nuclear forces, would be appointed, reappointed, and his service may be extended solely on the CDF's recommendation, and the process would be shielded from judicial review. That's the important thing. The process today, the chief of the National Strategic Command, which controls the entire nuclear forces, the appointment can be made only by the Chief of Defense Staff, that is Asim Munir. And it can be extended at the behest of Asim Munir. And also the converse, he can be sacked by Asim Munir. And no one can go to the court for any redressal. Or no one can go to the court against it. So the judiciary has been completely emasculated. The National Command Authority remains civilian led and structurally intact. That's been left. That's the thing. The National Command Authority has been left as it is. That's the deception of this law. He's called a deceiver. Why is he called a deceiver? Because of this. One has to understand this. Why is he called a deceiver? Remains civilian led and structurally intact, but it does tilt the institutional balance inside the military in favor of the army, even though the delivery systems are spread across the three services. The existing service strategic commands will be unified under the new National Strategic Command. They have their three independent strategic commands, but they will have to work under the new strategic command, which is under the new commander who's under the Chief of Defense Staff. It bypasses the NCA completely. So the NCA is there, but it has become neutral or neutered is the thing. Now, they goes into the minutiae of these things. It says Section 88E2 has drawn immediate attention for its sweeping exclusion of judicial review. It states, so there's no judicial review of anything which Asim Munir does. It's not that he can't be held responsible in the court of law for his own actions. No, even during day-to-day functions, no one can go to the court against Asim Munir. That's what he has done. It states that the appointment, reappointment, and extension of CNSC shall not be called into question before any court on any ground whatsoever. A very important amendment. This unprecedented ouster clause looks to shield the CNSC appointment and extension from any legal challenge. Thank you. Although the amended legislations do not link the appointments and extension service of Air Force and Navy Chief to the recommendation of the CDF, but observers say that the way system has been designed, it looks like all 4-star appointments would be done in consultation with the CDF, whereas 3-star and above, below promotions and transfers would continue to be done by respective service chiefs. But that is to be seen. So what happens now? The Chief of Defense Staff in the Pakistan Army, as per this analysis, will be the one who will appoint the Air Force Chief and the Naval Chief, and of course the CNSC. The interesting thing is the commander of the National Strategic Command is not open for judicial review, but the Air Force Chief and the Naval Chief, they can be proceeded against. Immunity is not for the Air Force Chief and the Naval Chief. Legal immunity is only for the Chief of Defense Staff and the Chief of Army Staff. Because who becomes the Chief of Army Staff will also be the Chief of Defense Staff. And if he is the Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, and the Chief of Defense Staff is the same. The Chief of Army Staff in Pakistan is immune to legal review. The Air Force and the Naval Chief are not. Here comes a differentiation. Okay, right? A subtle but significant change in 176C of Pakistan Army Act. Now, the Army Act has also been changed. Gives the CDF come COS decisive control on how his own powers are delegated. The amendment allows the federal government to authorize vice or deputy chiefs of army staff to exercise COS functions, but that has been recommended to the linked to the recommendation of the CDF come COS himself. So there is the from their own thing, the government can appoint a vice chief and delegated responsibilities to him. But what is this has done? That vice chief will have to know be appointed by the CDF come COS. Earlier, it was the executive's prerogative to make such appointments, although they were rarely made by political government. Military rulers Zia and Musharraf appointed vice chief to run the army while they ruled the country. So the vice chief was de facto the army chief, but without power. The power was always with Musharraf or Zia or whoever the chief was. In fact, for that matter, even Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan earlier. No more. In fact, here comes the kicker. A military source speaking on the background, however, said the current chief does not intend to appoint a vice chief of army staff for now. So, one man, he's going to run the army, he's going to run the Air Force and the Navy, all in all, as his chief of defense staff. No one is going to come in between. This is the new thing, the new structure of the Pakistan army, which we need to understand. And the nuclear things are all under him. And this has been built into the constitution. Look, I'll put it this way. When our chief of defense staff was made, it was by executive order. It was not by a constitutional amendment. There's a difference. This fellow has got himself to be a chief of defense staff through constitutional amendment, not an executive order. Which means the executive has got no power. That's why that pillar is out. In any case, that executive and the legislature are functioning at the behest of the army chief. Remember, this is a Form 47 government. What is a Form 47 government? All these follows. More than 2/3 of the MNAs, members of the National Assembly, and senators in Pakistan have lost their elections. It is the Pakistan army chief who's rigged their elections. Big man. So he has the capability, because he has the actual results in his hand, to throw anyone out or finish the assembly out. Just think of a situation where tomorrow this government is dismissed on some irregularity or legality or anything. He engineers the demise of the government and says, okay, the government in Pakistan will be governed by the president. And then he holds a gun to the president's head and says, no, you do what I have to tell you. He's already done that. So if the next step in Pakistan could be this, as it is, it's a constitutional dictatorship. It will become even more. Then about modernization, para on modernization. Modernization means reducing the power of the individual chiefs and strengthening joint institutions that dilute single service dominance. This model does the opposite, right? By pulling more levers upward into a single office and lengthens its tenure to at least 2030 and potentially beyond to 2035. So you're looking at this man to be in chair for the next 10 years. That is why I said something has changed. We need to understand it. Many of us, if I talk, people will say I'm biased against the Pakistan army and because I'm an Indian. But this is what, from those two articles, analysts from Pakistan are saying. Therefore, instead of producing a system that could streamline decision making, the restructuring is risking becoming overly dependent on the personality, preferences, and politics of whoever occupies that seat. We know who's occupying that seat for the next 10 years. The role of Navy and Air Force in decision making looks diminished precisely at the moment when their role should be expanding due to maritime competition and emerging airspace threats. That's what one has to understand. And this will create its own problems. We'll talk of that also. They've spoken of it. This is not an argument against jointness. The country's armed forces need jointness desperately. It needs integrated command structures, a strong civilian led defense ministry, and clear oversight mechanisms that bring coherence to national security planning. It needs what all modern military needs, which is institutions stronger than the individual. They're not mentioned it, but today the individual is stronger than all the institutions in Pakistan. That's why I keep calling it a constitutional coup. It's not simple. This is a constitutional coup of the highest order. Okay. Then the proposed 27th constitutional amendment, which would overhaul Article 243 and recast Pakistan's military command hierarchy, is the most ambitious restructuring effort in decades and perhaps the most contentious as it collides with entrenched institutional cultures and fragile equilibrium between civilian and military power. Look, what this man has done is very simple. What earlier, when a dictator used to come, he just used to throw out the constitution, amend certain issues of the constitution, maybe Article 18 and certain things, give himself powers, throw the constitution out, and he was a dictator. End of story. He is not doing that. He is immunizing himself. You see, as a dictator, if you amended the constitution, when the constitution gets reinstated back, you're open to judicial, you know, accountability. Like Musharraf was. Because Zia didn't get the chance because he was held accountable to God directly. And Ayub Khan was held accountable and thrown out. And he died in ignominy. Yahya Khan, of course, again thrown out. But in this case, he cannot be thrown out. He is not accountable. And he is maintaining a facade of civilian control, but he controls it. This is what the deception is all about. Right? The next part is interesting. Its implementation may prove far more difficult than its drafters imagine. The plan collides with entrenched institutional cultures, long standing inter service rivalries, and the delicate balance between civilian oversight and military autonomy that has, at least in theory, defined Pakistan's power structure since 1973. This will be a problem. How he handles the Air Force and the Navy. I'll tell you why. In Op Sindoor, the army did nothing. The Pakistan army did nothing. It was only the Air Force. Whatever they say, they talk of their Air Force having come up and shot down 6 Rafales and all that. The theory is about the Air Force. What did the army do? They did nothing. Army got power. The Air Force did everything. Even the Navy says, "Oh, we did all this," and hence Indian Navy couldn't come close to us. The Air Force chief got himself a second extension. How it happened, we don't. Before this chap became the field marshal, he got a second extension. Okay, but now all that is in the hands of Asim Munir. So, which means he's going to rein in the Air Force and the Navy. There are going to be problems. There might be problems. And don't rule the civilians out who might, you know, light a fire with the Navy and the Air Force to do something. So it's not going to be easy for Asim Munir to rule like this. But at the same time, expect more amendments in the future, more things to happen in the future. And people are already talking about the 28th Amendment. We'll see what it is. One of these days, I'll take an educated guess as to what the 28th Amendment is going to be. Right. He says the reform would elevate the army chief to a constitutionally enshrined position of supremacy, combining operational command with overarching control of all services. No doubt. By placing an army officer as the chief of defense forces with authority over the air force and the navy, the proposed system invites institutional imbalance and a potential disaster. This is important. For India, this is an important thing. We need to trigger that potential disaster. How we do it is our question. I'll not talk of it today. But if you can do that imbalance in Pakistan, they'll head to problems. The amendment appears tailored to benefit a specific individual rather than to strengthen the defense structure. And here it goes, the problems between the Air Force and the Navy and the Army. The Air Force and Navy have long resisted attempts to subordinate their autonomy under a land-centric command. So this is going to happen. Already this is under discussion. A critical question under the new system is who would control transfers, posting and promotions in the Air Force and Navy. We'll have to see this. And I'm sure, knowing what Asim Munir, he'll start controlling that also. Would the two service chiefs really cede that authority? I'll put the counter question. Will the two other service chiefs, Air Force and Naval Chief, have the capability to stand up to Munir? Right? If promotions in the Air Force and Navy were to be decided by an army origin CDF, it could lead to festering resentments and affect morale in the long run. Well, that's how it is. Now, let's talk about the nuclear forces. Consequential is proposal to create a commander of the National Strategic Command, a position overseeing the country's nuclear forces. Under the amendment, the commander would be appointed by the Prime Minister on the Army Chief's recommendation and must be chosen from the Army. So the nuclear forces of Pakistan will be only the Army. This subtle shift moves control of the country's most sensitive assets away from the NCA. So the civilian oversight over the thing is out. With their analysis, effectively, all nuclear weapons and delivery systems will be under the Army's control, including second strike missiles, which normally fall under Naval Command. So, it doesn't matter who holds, but the control will be with the Air Force. Army. That's the coup. Then the appointment and the privileges, that's another thing. Perhaps the most controversial innovation lies in the clauses granting lifelong constitutional protection to officers elevated to 5-star rank. That's Chief of Defense Force, Field Marshal, Marshal of the Air Force, or Admiral of the Fleet. Now, these officers would retain rank, privileges, and remain in uniform for life, removable only through impeachment under Article 47, and protected by immunities similar to that enjoyed by the President. Which means that he's already a President. He's equivalent to the President today. Understand this. The constitutional dictatorship which he has engineered, Asim Munir, already has put him at par with the President. There's a President who's a Mora, and here is a chap who's now constitutionally equal, having equal powers as that of a President, and he'll do everything. Okay? Right. The language is designed to legalize the extraordinary promotion of General Asim Munir to Field Marshal following the India-Pakistan confrontation. Okay. What looks ceremonial on paper, however, amounts to permanent legal armor around an unelected office holder. A parallel authority, that's what I said, it's a parallel authority. It's normally the president, prime minister, and all that. No, now it is the field marshal down. And virtually it makes the PM report to the field marshal. Right? A parallel authority insulated from the very rule of law it is sworn to defend. हम शपथ खाते हैं when we do this thing. मैं भारत का संविधान को रक्षा करूंगा over land, sea and air and all that. He is doing they also do the same thing, but he is insulated from the same rules which he is sworn to defend. Okay, it blurs the line between honor and power, creating lifetime immunities for military officers upends the very idea of civilian supremacy. I mean, let's be very clear, in Pakistan there was never any civilian supremacy, but this kills everything. That's why I said the three pillars of the state are done. The fourth is anyway emasculated. The judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. The legislative and the executive have been completely swiped off through the position of the field marshal and the fact that this field marshal fellow has put this judiciary and the executive in place. Otherwise, they can't survive. Okay, the bill as first phrase of a border right. There could be more updates coming with the changes in the Army Act and NC Act to reflect new proposals. So they themselves are thinking there is more ahead. This could also lead to the restructuring of strategic forces currently administered by three services separately into a unified single command. If that happens, all in one. The trajectory towards centralization rather than coordination captures the tension at the heart of Pakistan's military politics. Every attempt at jointness risks hardening into hierarchy because institutional habits and prestige are resistant to reform. The stakes are profound. The country's constitution has endured repeated experiments in balancing military power and civilian authority. Unfortunately, that constitution is not there. It's a piece of paper. And this piece of paper doesn't guarantee anything to anyone except the field marshal. Right? And the chief of defense staff, they say, can be created through statutory reform, subject to parliamentary review. That's not there. But embedding such a role in constitution transforms it from an administrative necessity into a permanent political reality, one that cannot be undone. That's what I said. This chief of defense staff in Pakistan is now constitutional. The chief of defense staff in India is not constitutional. Right? The question is whether modernization must come at the cost of institutional equilibrium. History offers a cautionary note that once the military power is constitutionalized, it rarely yields ground voluntarily. So that's very clear. The repercussions of this to Pakistan is very clear. Till 2035, he'll be there. If he's going to be there till 2035, we have to be clear as to how to deal with it. Article 243 in the Pakistan Constitution is the relationship between the armed forces and the executive. Okay. Article 243 was meant to preserve civilian command over the armed forces. It was meant to. By their own admission, the 27th Amendment risks rewriting it into a charter of military supremacy. These are all diplomatic because if the chap says it has happened, he'll be put in jail. So he's just shown, oh, it can happen. But actually, this is what he means. Already, one High Court judge has quit. Whether others will follow, we don't know. We don't know. I mean, how things will happen in Pakistan. It's nice to say everything is in his hand and all, but there are tensions. Asim Munir has created tensions between himself and the uh, Air Force and the Navy, there's no doubt. He's created tensions between himself and the rest of the army, again, no doubt. He's created tensions between him and the judiciary, there's no doubt. There are tensions between him and the legislative and the executive, but that he holds their balls. How this is going to play out in this unstable country is to be seen because this could be lethal. This this is a thing about there's a cartoon in Dawn 2 days back. So with this is where democracy is. Okay, it's not only Islam says wear a hijab and all that. Now, democracy in Pakistan is like this, with a whale and a stick. They themselves are coming out with such cartoons. There's a very interesting article I saw yesterday. It's called Grundnorm. What is Grundnorm? It's a basic norm. It's a basic norm on which constitutions are built. And this guy is a Supreme Court lawyer, and he's discussed a lot of things. But I'm going to give again excerpts of this because those excerpts are pretty. This is what he writes. The 27th Amendment strikes at the heart of the Constitution. It strips the Supreme Court of its supreme status. It endows the executive with the power to immediately pack the FCC, the Federal Constitutional Court. So today in Pakistan, the Supreme Court is not supreme. It's the Federal Constitutional Court which is supreme. It undermines the security of judicial tenure and provides for transfer as a means to punish non-compliant High Court judges. High Court judges in Pakistan, as a result, can be posted out. They can be demoted through transfer. And then it introduces a mechanism for compulsory retirement of judges and allows the executive to circuitously brandish this power with great nuisance. Once you appoint a person as a Supreme Court judge, even in India, you can't remove him. In fact, in USA and all, it's for life. In this case, this 27th Amendment, that's the other thing. That's how the last pillar which could stand, the judiciary has been killed. Today, the triangle in Pakistan was always judiciary, armed forces, and the elites or the politicians. Politicians have been emasculated. The judiciary and this has been completely finished off. Only that person who is recommended by the executive, the government, not even the legislature, only the government can appoint a judge in the Supreme Court or the Federal Constitutional Court. And his tenure is based on at the behest of the government, not the normal way. And that danda is with the Chief of Defence Forces. And they will only appoint someone into the FCC who is completely pliant and compliant with what Asim Munir wants. That's the complete fixing which has happened. This is interesting. He quotes, what's interesting in this entire thing which I did is, that major analysis, they also spoke, they discussed how India put its Chief of Defence staff. And in this analysis, that's why I brought this up. They quote how India has protected its own constitution. Let me read it out because I'm not too familiar, but I've heard of this, or rather, I've read about this. The argument known as the basic structure doctrine, that's the ground norm, okay, prevailed with the Indian Supreme Court initially in the Keswananda Bharati was a state of Kerala in 1973, and later in Minerva Mills versus Union of India, 1980. You see, law is by past precedents. Jurisprudence is by precedents. When a law or something happens, there's a precedent, that precedent becomes the law. That's the normal way law develops. So these two, he quotes, right? So let me go on. The Indian Supreme Court initially in the Keswananda Bharati and versus Union of India and Minerva Mills was a state of Kerala and Minerva Mills versus Union of India, when it struck down a constitutional amendment that sought to render fundamental rights subservient to the directive principles of state policy. The Indian government, the Supreme Court said you can't do that as per the Constitution. You can't amend the Constitution where, yeah, the fundamental rights of people are subservient to the directive principles of the state policy. There are no conditions on the constitutional rights. Right? Chief Justice Yashwant Chandrachud wrote that amendment. If allowed to stand, it would deny India the heaven of freedom into which Tagore wanted his country to awake and thrust it towards the abyss of unrestrained power. They're quoting Tagore, they're quoting our Supreme Courts. We must be proud of it. The flip is that, look, today if you enjoy the power, because some people in India stood up. You're talking of 73, 80, this is the time, when Indira Gandhi was at its peak power, all that. So you are seeing that after that it's never been tried. A couple of times it's been tried, it's been this thing, but this is what stands today. In Pakistan, the protection which people enjoy as a result of the constitution has been violated at every turn. This is it. He says the 27th Amendment came against the backdrop of shady elections, 5 judges of the Islamabad High Court complaining to the Supreme Court of interference in their judicial work, a former Prime Minister being behind bars with over 100 cases against him, a national history of civilian supremacy being compromised, and the judicature being manipulated to serve vested interests. All this has been done. Now people are talking of it. They will come up. And herein lies the Achilles heel of Asim Munir. Tomorrow something happens and something will happen in Pakistan. It's not going to run away. All these constitutional amendments will go zero. Why? Because if the legislature itself today is illegal, the government is illegal and the assembly is illegal. After all, the government comes out of the legislature, isn't it? The parliament. That is illegal because all the fellows who are now elected are illegal. They're not. If all those elections are set aside and the government is illegal, whatever that government has done in terms of constitutional amendments are also illegal. And they know. See, shady elections, interference in judicial working, a former prime minister in jail, right? Their own history of civilian supremacy being compromised, and the judiciary is now being manipulated to serve vested interests. All this is there. This groundwork is already there. Something happens, all this is thrown. Then what happens to Pakistan? What happens to Asim Munir? What happens to the army? They'll manipulate it. I mean, that's a different story. Asim Munir will manipulate, but he sits in danger. Of course, after all this, Asim Munir might still suffer the same fate which Ziaul Haq suffered. And some might send some a case of mangoes to him, and that will be the end of his story. We don't know. Right? So there's a you see the Pakistan which has emerged. See this fellow, the way he's manipulated everything and what he is. So we have to be careful in dealing with him. That is why I took the trouble of coming verbatim. For many of you, it might be boring. These things are invariably boring. You know, when you want to deal with your enemy, it's not just about fighting. You can fight with him. You can do whatever you want. Yesterday, you heard Pakistan cannot be defeated militarily. Pakistan has to be defeated politically. How do you engineer that defeat politically is something which we have to think hard. Unfortunately, our nation doesn't think hard that way. We only think of how many BrahMos missiles we can fire. We only think of do you need aircraft, you need tanks, you need this. How do you fight? Can you take over POK militarily? That's the most stupid way of doing things. Well, you come to gunner shot, you're going to get something better than stupidity. Okay, I'm not going to be stupid to say, oh, ye karo, wo karo, Pakistan ko aise kaato, pito. No. If you want that, then you go to some other channel. Okay, that's how it is. Anyway, this is where I end. Today we have some time. We'll take some questions. I'm grateful to all of you who joined me today in the morning. If you like this podcast, press the thumbs up button and subscribe to Gunner Shot. On the notification, that bell icon, and of course, join Gunner Shot as members. I'll be more than grateful. Yeah, General Shankar, in our India, military solution is one of the political tools too, right? No, there's no military solution in India for anything. And I must explain this to you. Even when the military is brought out in aid of civil authority and everything, the military doesn't get deployed in any disturbed area on its own. Even the central government can't do that. It's only the state government which can do that. I must tell you the procedure. If there's an area which is considered disturbed, it is the state government which declares that area as disturbed under Disturbed Area Act. Once it is there and the Disturbed Area Act, it can call in the military in aid of civil authority. Otherwise, also it can call in for aid of civil authority if there's a situation which occurs due to disaster or riots and things like that, law and order and all, restoration of law and order. But Disturbed Area Act, you want to use the military as a tool constitutionally, this is the way. So then the military is requisitioned to be come in and carry out certain tasks. A mandate is given to the military. And incidentally, this requisition doesn't go to the military. The requisition goes to the central government from the state government. And the central government sanctions deployment of the military. Only then the military can be deployed, either the Air Force or the Navy or the Army, except for emergencies. Emergencies, there is simple aid in aid of civil authority. Simple. That's a very simple thing, but it's time tested. So our nation is different. So Satish, I hope you answered. I've taken this. This is a very important question. There's no military solution for us. And I hope there's no military solution for India ever. Okay, let me take this thing. Yeah, happy morning, General Sir. Have a great day. Thank you. Akash, good morning. You asked a very pertinent question yesterday, Akash. Hats off to you. Okay, Ladybird Haru, good morning. Yeah. Suidaga Kenchi, good morning. Yeah. Thanks a lot for those links. Yeah, yeah. I hope you people are having it, look at it, and subscribe to Substack with him. His father was a great and is great person to get more insight. Yes, unfortunately, I don't think he's no more to the best of my knowledge. Yeah, the Pak army is the only pillar of Pakistan, and the Punjabi Musliman is the only pillar of the Pak army. A psychoanalysis of this breed may be useful for present and future dealings. I agree with you, Akash. That's why I've done this. Maybe now we'll go to the what you're looking at the Punjabi angle. We'll do that. Uh, yeah, thanks a lot. Today morning's podcast with a tribute to World Cup winning women's team and connect to India's growth was superb. Thanks a lot. Some part of the clip I had to take out because that came under copyright issues and all. It's a little incomplete at that point, but I did patch up whatever I could. I hope you found it okay. Right. Question is why Munir feels to have the 23rd Amendment, unlike our 27th Amendment, not 23rd Amendment. Unlike our military, which follows the Constitution, their Constitution follows the army. Well, he has to have legality in what he's doing. That's it. As simple as that. It's a tool of power. The Gemini nation, yeah. Mm. So, am I still a member? You're not a member. You're not a member. You have to. I think your membership expired long back. You have to get back as a member. If you're a member, your name will appear in green. Okay. Hmm. Is Munir going to try something irresponsible for which he doesn't have to be held? Yeah, he will. That's his whole story. He's already done whatever it is. But they can always be tried by International Court of Justice. So again, no. What is the International Court of Justice? Who's bothered about it? No one's bothered about it. And that process is very long. No one's got time for this fellow. Yeah, meaning Pakistan Navy and Air Force have become Pakistan Army Air Corps and Army Water Corps. Yes, you're right. Yeah, Sekong, good morning and Jai Hind. Yeah, salute, sir. How will the Baluch, Afghan, Pashtun, and of Pakistan people of GB, POK, and Sindh respond to this 27th Amendment and the upcoming 28th Amendment? They have no choice. They have no choice. They respond. They will respond with what's happening in Pakistan already. They have no choice otherwise. I mean, as far as this is concerned, because the 27th Amendment virtually doesn't affect them. Their aims, उनका मुद्दा अलग है. That's the thing. You have to understand that the mudda of all these people is different. The 27th Amendment affects the government and the centrality of Pakistan, but not these. Is Munir radicalized because he's a Hafizi Quran or is he Hafiz because he's a radical? Either way, as a general yourself, how does this mindset have a larger effect on the troops? Look, the troops will be very happy with him. That's one thing you must understand. When he became the chief, he went around all formations and he spoke to troops. And he promised them the moon. He's quite a popular chap within the Pakistan army because he's giving them mullah. Oh, Pakistan army gets everything. Weapons, equipment, the military businesses are growing. People are getting money. So for a lot of people in Pakistan, continuation of Pakistan rule and military rule in Pakistan in one form or the other is a boon to them. So he'll be very happy. As Pakistan becomes the next Ukraine, we'll have to identify who will act as NATO for Pakistan and our policy for this possibility. I don't want that similarity to come in. It's not the next Ukraine. Pakistan is in a different league on its own, and it will survive on that league story. So we have to look at it from that point of view. Yeah. So 28th Amendment, budget and tax policy to be set by five-star. No, it will not be. Look, he'll never do that. He will never touch economics. It will be more to do with his powers. The 28th Amendment might squarely put him at par with the president. And we'll see how it comes. It will also come by experience of what. See, when they made the 26th Amendment, he felt that he had covered all bases. But he found that certain bases were off. He couldn't. Because people still went to the Supreme Court. People still went to the Supreme Court and put this thing, because at that time, after the 26th Amendment, there was a constitutional bench made within the Supreme Court. So they went. Though didn't go to the constitutional bench, it went to the Supreme Court. The cases are pending there. The cases went against the constitutional bench. So he'll have to see now how people will react. When people will react, people will do what they have to do. The 28th Amendment will be contingent upon that. This is not simple. Okay. There are no coups within Pakistan Army Defense Forces because of the structure. Yeah, that's the structure they made. Why does he have to do a coup when he's done it judicially? That's why I call it a constitutional dictatorship. So the constitution is the constitution taken seriously in Pakistan? What is the guarantee that tomorrow some other prevails as super dictator and send Mr. Munir to Sri Krishna Commission? Then Mustan. Doesn't happen. The constitution gives the legality. The constitutional framework gives him the power. With that power, he will get his chamchas. Don't underestimate him. And they will control the system. There's no way anyone else can now grow. And that's the history of Pakistan. And they will not come up. Because if there is growth of another alternate power center, some part of Pakistan's armed forces are supporting him. In which case, there will be a clash. If there's a clash, it will collapse. It will not happen. Pakistan Muslims and Muslims in general think they're superior to Hindus. Well, that's their problem anyway. Pakistan army has emasculated the country. Yes, but why? How? Can we hold the civilians and common folk as accountable? Since these greedy neo-converts are so selfish that they couldn't give a damn. It's their headache. They have emasculated the country. We can't hold anyone responsible or accountable. But what we can do is we can highlight the conditions they are in. And that has to be done through good strategic communications, which we are not doing. That's it. At the end, if the decision of our PM and Modi ji to take a military or political solution, I have a proper belief. No, I don't think that will happen. Yeah, fantastic analysis. Thanks for this topic with the backdrop of yesterday's discussion with General Chauhan. This is top notch. Thanks a lot. Even military police is an outcome of political, religious, ideological thinking of man. Yeah. You poked the phrenic nerve of. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Your presentations are always knowledgeable and thought-provoking. Always done after. Yeah. We need to. If our nation has to grow, it has to grow on the basis of thought. And thought is, let me be very honest, is not the forte of the military. The thought is a forte of our civilians, the armed army. His thinking is prime. The army thinks our army thinks, let me be very honest with you, but it doesn't think on all these issues at all times. It's more in the day-to-day army is more busy in doing the day-to-day things to guard the nation. It's only after we retire that we focus our energies on bigger issues. Yeah, strategic patience and strategic thinking are needed now. Hotheads and peaceniks both need to rise above sentiment. 100%. I think this is a very good statement you made. Under Pakistan, what if, under Asim, what if Pakistan provides Bangladesh nuclear technology? Improbable. They'll never do it. Yeah, thanks a lot, Pramod Sinha, for your compliment. Uh, Still, USA is okay with a dictatorship. That's okay. Why are we bothered how they deal with it? They'll always be that way. That's the history of USA. Do you think government is interested in doing a political action in POJK? I don't think so. Unfortunately, they're not doing it. Even after 3 terms of BHP in government, it can't do it when I don't know. That's a question which we have to ask the government. The government has to do it. Okay. So we've come to the end of the questions. I've answered all, most, at least one or two questions of what all of you put. Thanks a lot for joining in. Today evening, let me see if I can get General Satish Dua and say we'll talk of religion and politics in the army. If we can't, then I will talk about can China go to war? Why I'm going to talk of China going to war is there's something happening between Japan and China. There's a problem in the South China Sea. The issue of Taiwan has come up again. A lot of questions are being asked in the light of US China equation, which Chinese see as favoring them. And in all this, will they come to war with us? What are the issues? And we'll talk of it in the evening. If, of course, if the Dua comes, we'll talk of the topic which is better. Right? Till then, have a great day and enjoy yourself. It's raining in Chennai, and I don't think we will have a cyclone as it, but I'm preparing for it. Till then, have a great day. Good morning, and Jai Hind to all of you.